A routine cannot cure grief, but it can keep grief from deciding every hour alone. Sorrow has a way of occupying ordinary time. A meal remains unfinished because appetite has vanished. A message waits unanswered because even a few words feel costly. A familiar room becomes suddenly altered, not because the furniture has moved, but because someone is absent, something has ended, or the future no longer resembles the one you expected. Perhaps your grief feels like loneliness. Perhaps it feels like brokenness, waiting, stress, anger, numbness, or a weariness that makes comfort seem both necessary and unreachable. Yet no two mourners carry loss in precisely the same way. Grief enters through different doors, settles differently in the body, and changes from one hour to the next. Any practice worthy of accompanying it must begin with humility. A trellis supports a living thing, but it does not command it to bloom. That is the spirit of these 30 days. They are not a cure. A cure claims to remove the wound. A rule of life simply gives the wounded person somewhere to place the next hour. It offers form when time has become shapeless, and a modest direction when the whole road cannot yet be seen. Over the coming days, we will return to 6 practices: lament, which tells the truth; embodied rest, which cares for the place where sorrow is carried; memory, which honors love without surrendering every moment to the past; prayer, including prayer without many words; community, which permits us to receive companionship; and service, which allows love to move outward without requiring us to disappear. These are not stages, and they do not manufacture an outcome. They are places of return. If you value patient reflection, where Christian faith meets honest suffering, you are welcome to subscribe and accompany this series. Then let us be clear about the path we are taking. There will be no deadline for grief, no guaranteed transformation, no spiritual scorecard, and no shame if you pause, repeat, reorder, omit, or change the plan. This framework is not clinical treatment, spiritual merit, or evidence that recovery is proceeding correctly. It is a servant, never a judge. Faithful mourning needs supports, not deadlines. The question, then, is not whether 30 days can make sorrow obey. They cannot. The better question is whether structure can remain merciful when grief refuses to cooperate. What kind of rule can give the next hour a faithful form without quietly becoming a stopwatch? Before day 1 begins, we must make a covenant strong enough to keep mercy at the center. A calendar may hold a practice, but it cannot measure a soul. It can tell us that a day has passed. It cannot tell us what courage was required to endure it, what sorrow returned without warning, or what small act of faithfulness became possible within it. Before we begin, then, the rule itself must be placed under mercy. This is not a streak to preserve, a challenge to complete, a treatment plan to substitute for care, or a spiritual examination in which every missed practice counts against you. It is specific enough to offer direction, yet flexible enough to honor the fact that grief changes our capacity. The same person who can walk, write, and pray today may struggle to rise, eat, or speak tomorrow. The framework must be able to bend with that change. For this reason, every practice will have 3 possible forms. The minimum version is for days when strength is scarce. The ordinary version is for days when some attention and energy are available. The expansive version is for those moments when time and strength genuinely permit more. Lament, for example, may be one truthful sentence, several minutes of writing, or a longer period of prayer. Rest may be one glass of water, a quiet walk, or an afternoon protected from unnecessary demands. More is not automatically more faithful. The appropriate practice is the one that honestly meets the capacity of the day. As a general daily minimum, seek one honest acknowledgement of what is present, one modest act of bodily care, and one point of connection with God or another person. You might name your sadness, eat something simple, and send a brief message. Yet, even this minimum may be reduced. On the hardest day, an inward acknowledgement, a sip of water, or simply consenting to receive another person's presence may be enough. Mercy does not disappear when capacity does. You also have 4 explicit permissions. You may pause when continuing would become harmful or impossible. You may repeat a day when a practice deserves more time. You may reorder the days when your circumstances require another sequence. You may omit what cannot wisely be carried. A missed practice never becomes debt. There is no catching up, no doubling tomorrow's burden, and no hidden penalty for returning after an absence. A humane rule recognizes faithfulness not as uninterrupted performance, but as honest return. Write this covenant somewhere visible. These practices will accompany my grief, not grade it. Let that sentence govern every decision that follows. 30 days is a container for attention, not a prediction about healing, peace, faith, or emotional stability. You may feel steadier and then shaken, prayerful and then empty, connected and then alone. None of these changes proves that the rule has succeeded or failed. And because devotional practice has proper limits, it must never be asked to replace qualified pastoral, medical, psychological, or emergency support when such care is needed. Seeking additional help is not a departure from faithfulness. It may be one of its clearest expressions. Now that the rule has been placed beneath mercy, we can begin not with improvement, but with the first duty of mourning, telling the truth. The first practice is lament, and its purpose is not to make grief eloquent. Lament is grief refusing to lie in the presence of God. It does not perform sorrow for an audience, and it does not require the mourner to explain what cannot yet be understood. It simply brings what is true into the relationship where nothing was ever hidden. On day 1, write or speak one unedited sentence, naming what has been lost and what hurts now. The sentence may be plain: I miss the life I thought we would have. I am angry that this happened. I feel abandoned. I cannot feel anything, and that frightens me. Resist the impulse to improve the sentence after it appears. Do not make it sound more faithful, balanced, or hopeful. The practice is not to produce the correct account of your grief. It is to stop concealing your present experience from God and from yourself. On day 2, divide a page into 2 short columns. Above the first, write, what I miss. Above the second, write, what I fear. Then place whatever comes beneath those words without answering, correcting, or ranking it. You may miss a person and also miss who you were before the loss. You may fear another loss, an empty future, a difficult responsibility, or the possibility that others will move forward while you remain bewildered. The 2 lists may contradict each other. Grief often holds desires that do not agree, and truth does not become false merely because it is untidy. On day 3, offer this unfinished material to God. Your prayer need not resolve anything. You might say, God, this is what I miss, this is what I fear, and I do not know what to do with either. Confusion may be included. Anger may be included. Uncertainty may be included. Silence may occupy most of the prayer. Honesty before God is not the opposite of faith. It can be the form faith takes when certainty has disappeared. Sometimes, remaining in God's presence without manufacturing confidence is itself a profound act of trust. Choose the form that fits your capacity. The minimum version may be 1 truthful word, 1 mark on paper, or a brief moment spent admitting that no words are available. The ordinary version may be the sentence, the 2 columns, and a plain prayer offered over 3 days. The expansive version may include longer writing, speaking aloud, tears, pauses, or returning to what has been written and addressing each part to God. Greater length does not make lament more sincere. Its integrity lies in refusing disguise. For these 3 days, do not force gratitude, meaning, forgiveness, acceptance, or a lesson from the loss. Those matters must not be demanded before their time, and none should be used to silence pain. Faithful mourning begins with truth, before it moves toward interpretation. A prayer may end without reassurance. It may even end with a question mark. And once grief has been permitted to speak, we begin to notice that sorrow is not carried by language alone. It appears in appetite, fatigue, breath, tension, and sleep. Tomorrow, the body that carries these truths will still need to rise, and it too must be allowed to join the prayer. The soul may speak in sentences, but the body often speaks in weight, wakefulness, and weariness. It may feel unusually heavy, remain alert when rest is desired, or tire beneath tasks that once required little thought. Not every mourner will experience the same changes, and no bodily response gives a complete account of grief. Yet the body must carry what the mind cannot settle, and it deserves more than impatience for failing to function as it did before. On day 4, choose one manageable act of nourishment or hydration. Drink what you can receive, eat something simple. If preparing food is beyond your present capacity, accept what requires the least effort or allow someone else to provide it. Receive this not as evidence that you are improving, but as care offered to a body under strain. A meal does not declare that sorrow has lessened. Water does not answer the questions lament has raised. These acts simply acknowledge that the one who grieves is still worthy of attention. On day 5, consider a small movement or change of surroundings. You might take a brief walk, sit outdoors, stretch gently, or move from one room to another. If movement is painful, unsafe, unavailable, or beyond your strength, let the practice become an adjustment of posture, a moment near an open window, or attention to the light entering the room. Adaptation matters more than duration. The purpose is not to prove vitality, pursue a particular mood, or force the body to become energetic. It is to meet the body as it is and ask what degree of movement or change it can honestly bear. On day 6, remove one non-essential demand. Postpone an errand, decline an optional conversation, simplify a household task, or leave something unfinished without turning incompletion into an accusation. Then protect a modest interval for rest. Rest may mean lying down, sitting quietly, listening to familiar sounds, or allowing the mind to wander without assigning it another duty. You are not required to sleep. You are not required to become calm. A protected rest window remains worthwhile, even if tears come, thoughts race, or nothing within you appears to soften. This distinction matters. Rest is not the same as recovery. Embodied care offers consideration, not control. It does not promise that distress will lift, sleep will return, appetite will revive, or tomorrow will be easier. Caring for the body does not deny the depth of grief. It refuses to abandon the place where grief is being carried. Use the minimum form whenever it is needed. A sip of water, an opened curtain, a supported posture, or 5 quiet breaths without demanding any particular feeling. The ordinary form may include simple nourishment, a brief change of environment, and a protected pause across these 3 days. The expansive form may involve help with meals, longer gentle movement, or reducing several demands when circumstances permit. None is spiritually superior. The faithful form is the one that regards your actual limits with tenderness. And when the body has been given even a little room, attention may turn again toward the absence that altered the room itself, the person, place, future, or former identity still living in memory. The next question is how to welcome that memory deliberately, without requiring it to govern every hour. Memory deserves a chair in the house, but it need not be made to stand guard in every room. To honor what has been lost is not to remain continually exposed to every image, question, and ache associated with it. Love may be welcomed deliberately, approached with tenderness, and then allowed to rest while attention returns to the duties of the present hour. On day 7, choose one point of contact, a photograph, an object, a song title, a place, or a written name. Attend to it for a limited period, perhaps only a few minutes. Before beginning, offer a brief prayer. God, remain with me, as I remember. You may set a timer, sit in a particular room, or keep the object covered until the chosen moment. Such boundaries do not diminish love. They acknowledge that memory can be precious and painful, and that the mourner need not prove devotion through unlimited exposure. On day 8, tell or write one concrete story. Preserve an ordinary detail, something said at a table, a familiar gesture, the weather on a particular day, a habit once taken for granted, or a small feature of the future you expected. Do not force the story to teach a lesson. A memory is not required to become an illustration of courage, providence, gratitude, or personal growth. Its particularity is enough. You are allowing what mattered to be named without demanding that it justify its place. On day 9, name both the gift and the wound within one memory. The gift may be affection, belonging, beauty, safety, possibility, or simply the fact that something was loved. The wound may be absence, regret, anger, confusion, or the knowledge that the remembered moment cannot be entered again. These two truths need not be equal. Gratitude does not cancel pain, and pain does not make gratitude dishonest. They may remain beside one another without being reconciled on command. Give the practice an ending as well as a beginning. When the allotted time closes, cover the object, leave the room, extinguish a light, offer one closing sentence to God, or call a trusted person. The purpose is not to lock memory away, but to remind yourself that remembrance has edges. You may carry love forward without requiring your mind and body to remain inside the memory all day. The minimum form may be looking briefly at a written name or choosing an indirect reminder. The ordinary form may include the object, the story, and the naming of gift and wound across 3 days. The expansive form may allow longer writing, visiting a meaningful place, or sharing several memories with someone trustworthy. Yet, endurance is not the measure of love. If direct contact becomes overwhelming, stop. If today is not the day, postpone. If one memory feels unbearable, choose another that stands farther from the center of pain. Remembering well does not mean clinging to every moment or releasing love on command. It means giving love an honest and bounded place. And if memory unsettles the careful order of these first 9 days, that does not reveal a failed mourner. It reveals why day 10 must interrupt the plan, not to advance, but to learn how mercy responds when the plan itself breaks. A broken plan is not proof of a broken person, yet grief can tempt us to convert interruption into accusation. We miss a day, resist a practice, lose the strength we had yesterday, and quietly decide that the failure belongs not merely to the schedule but to us. Day 10 exists to interrupt that judgment. It is a checkpoint, not another assignment. Look back over the first 9 days without assigning yourself a grade. Notice what felt supportive, what felt neutral, what demanded too much, and what became impossible. Then ask 4 questions. What did I avoid? What exceeded my capacity? What brought a little steadiness? What support was missing? These questions are not instruments of prosecution. They are means of discernment. Avoidance may reveal fear, but it may also reveal a limit that deserves respect. Difficulty may invite adaptation, not greater force. A practice that offered no comfort has not necessarily failed, and a practice that helped once is not required to help every time. Perhaps a hard morning reduced your capacity before the day began. Perhaps an anniversary arrived, an unexpected object reopened pain, or a sudden wave of sorrow made a familiar task unbearable. A setback is an event, not a verdict. It does not erase the water you drank, the truth you named, the rest you permitted, or the memory you approached with care. What was faithfully done remains done, even when today feels unlike yesterday. Therefore, do not catch up. Missed days are not debts, and tomorrow must not be burdened with everything yesterday could not hold. You may restart from today. You may repeat an earlier practice because it still serves you. You may reorder what comes next, omit what is unwise, or pause until participation becomes possible again. Return does not require repayment. Mercy is not an exception, reluctantly added to the rule. Mercy is the rule that makes return possible. Now revise one part of your covenant. Do not write for the imagined mourner you hope to become by day 10. Write for the person who is actually here. If the ordinary form repeatedly exceeded your strength, choose the minimum form for the next phase. If remembrance needs another boundary, shorten it. If rest requires another person's help, name that need. If writing has become burdensome, replace it with speech, silence, or a single inward acknowledgement. Setbacks should revise the practice, not condemn the practitioner. You might write, "For now, I will practice only what my present capacity can carry." Or, when a difficult date or unexpected reminder comes, I may reduce the day to care, presence, and receiving help. Later, before these 30 days close, you will make a fuller plan for such triggers. Today, it is enough to learn that disruption can inform the rule without ruling your worth. Finally, ask what smallest meaningful practice could remain on a difficult day. Not what would prove devotion, restore progress, or make the day admirable, only what could keep one thread of relationship from being abandoned. For the next several days, that thread will be prayer, and when explanations are scarce and words feel heavy, prayer may become very small without becoming empty. When grief makes speech small, prayer need not pretend to be large. The temptation is to believe that prayer becomes worthy only when it is sustained, composed, attentive, and filled with feeling. But prayer is not an exhibition of spiritual strength. It is an act of remaining present to God, and remaining may be possible even when clarity, calm, and eloquence are not. On day 11, choose one line of address, need, or surrender. You might say, "God, I am still here," or "Help me through this hour," or simply, "Hold what I cannot carry." Repeat the sentence slowly, not to force conviction or manufacture emotion, but because repetition permits one honest intention to remain when the mind cannot hold many. If the words begin to feel mechanical, you need not accuse yourself. The sentence is not a device for producing comfort. It is a small consent to relationship. On day 12, borrow language. Choose a short line from a biblical lament, a familiar prayer, or words once given to you by a community of faith. Read them once, or several times, and allow them to speak where your own language stops. Borrowed words are not evidence of spiritual inadequacy. We borrow because faith has never been a solitary invention. Others have prayed from sorrow, confusion, fear, and longing, and their language may support you until your own becomes available, or may remain the truest language you have. On day 13, let prayer become silence. Sit for a brief period before God without demanding an insight, an answer, or a particular awareness of divine presence. If silence feels too unbounded, use an anchor. Light a candle, place a written name nearby, open your hands, kneel, or rest in a supported posture. The anchor is not magic, and the silence is not empty merely because your thoughts wander. Each time you notice distraction, return without rebuke to the simple intention, "I am here before God." On day 14, allow prayer to be received. Ask one trusted person, "Would you pray with me?" Or, "Would you pray for me today? I do not have words." You may listen in person, by telephone, or through a brief recorded message. You may ask them to keep the prayer short, avoid explanations, or refrain from telling you what your grief should mean. Consent remains yours. Receiving another person's prayer is not surrendering your boundaries. It is permitting dependence to become part of devotion. Do not measure any of these days by the peace that follows. You may finish prayer agitated, distracted, tearful, numb, or unchanged. Felt consolation can be welcomed, but it cannot become the test of whether prayer occurred. The worth of prayer does not depend upon verbal abundance or immediate relief. Sometimes faith is practiced not by feeling held, but by consenting to be addressed, accompanied, and carried when you cannot sense what is happening. The minimum form is one word, one breath of attention, or permission for someone else to pray. The ordinary form moves through the repeated sentence, borrowed language, silence, and received prayer across 4 days. The expansive form may lengthen any of these without making it superior. Prayer has contracted to meet your capacity, yet it has not become trivial. And once another person has entered this practice, a wider question appears. What kind of companionship can offer presence without requiring you to explain everything or perform recovery? When one person cannot carry the lamp steadily, another may walk beside them without claiming to become the sun. This is the humility faithful companionship requires. Another person cannot abolish the darkness, interpret the whole loss, or take possession of grief as though it were a problem entrusted to their skill. They can help keep a little light near the next step. Accompaniment is not rescue. It is shared presence without control. On day 15, draw 3 circles. In the first, write the names of people with whom honesty feels reasonably safe. These are people who can hear that you are struggling without demanding reassurance from you. In the second, name those who may be able to help practically, even if they are not the people to whom you would entrust your deepest thoughts. In the third, write the names of those whose contact presently requires limits. This circle is not a declaration that they are bad people. Their questions, advice, expectations, or manner of helping may simply require more energy than you possess. Discernment allows different relationships to carry different kinds of trust. On day 16, choose one person from either of the first 2 circles and make one specific request. General distress can be difficult for others to translate into action, especially when you lack the strength to guide them. Ask for a meal, a brief walk, a ride, a quiet visit, prayer, or help with one task. You might say, "Could you sit with me for half an hour without needing to talk?" Or, "Could you handle this errand on Thursday?" A precise request does not make your need excessive. It gives another person a faithful way to respond. On day 17, prepare one boundary sentence. Grief does not oblige you to receive unwanted advice, theological explanations, repeated questions, or pressure to sound better than you are. You may say, "I am not ready to discuss what this means," or "I appreciate your concern, but advice is difficult for me today," or simply, "I cannot answer more questions right now." A boundary does not reject community. It helps distinguish companionship from intrusion. The person who loves you may not understand the limit immediately, but your capacity does not become less real because someone else is disappointed by it. On day 18, enter one form of low-demand belonging. Attend a church service without staying afterward. Share a meal without telling the whole story. Join a support setting and listen. Accept a short telephone call, or invite someone to sit nearby in silence. Belonging does not always require disclosure. Sometimes it is enough to be among people without producing an account of your condition. The minimum form of community may be sending one name, one request, or one boundary sentence. The ordinary form moves through the circles, the request, the boundary, and one low-demand encounter. The expansive form may include several helpers, longer company, or regular support, but wider contact is not automatically wiser contact. Company may not remove loneliness. Accepting help is not failure, debt, or a promise to become continually available. Faithful community shares weight without claiming ownership of another person's grief. Let these 4 days leave you with one person to contact, one concrete request to make, and one boundary you are permitted to keep. Then carry that realism toward the roles still calling your name: work, family, administration, and the ordinary duties that sorrow does not always suspend. Duty may still knock at the door, but it does not gain the right to rename grief as laziness. Work may continue, children may need care, Forms may require attention, and a household may still depend upon ordinary decisions. Responsibility does not disappear because sorrow has entered the day. Yet neither does responsibility prove that you must think, speak, and perform as though nothing has changed. Necessity and unchanged performance are not the same demand. On day 19, list your present duties beneath 4 phrases: must be done, may wait, may be delegated, and may be released. Be concrete. A necessary payment or essential act of care may belong in the first category. A non-urgent reply or optional appointment may wait. A journey, telephone call, meal, or administrative task may be entrusted to another person. An expectation preserved only from habit, guilt, or fear of disappointing someone may be released. The purpose is not to escape every obligation, but to prevent every obligation from presenting itself as equally urgent. When everything appears essential, grief is forced to carry what discernment might have set down. On day 20, create a brief threshold ritual before and after work, caregiving, or administration. Before beginning, take one deliberate breath and pray, "God, give me grace for what belongs to this hour." You might touch a written name, pause beside a doorway, or sit silently before opening the first message. When the roll ends, mark that transition as well. Close the notebook, change rooms, wash your hands slowly, or say, "What remains unfinished may remain unfinished for today." Such rituals do not divide life into sacred grief and ordinary duty. They acknowledge that entering and leaving a demanding role may require intention when the mind no longer changes direction easily. On day 21, examine the difference between identity and output. Perhaps concentration has weakened, confidence has narrowed, or availability no longer resembles that of your former self. This alteration may be painful, especially if competence once provided stability or recognition. But diminished output does not mean diminished dignity. You remain a person before you are an employee, caregiver, organizer, provider, or problem solver. Your vocation may still matter deeply, while your ability to enact it changes from day to day. To admit this is not to abandon responsibility. It is to carry responsibility without making performance the measure of your worth. On day 22, make one honest and appropriately bounded request for practical adjustment or assistance. Ask a colleague to clarify the most urgent task, invite a relative to share one caregiving duty, request help completing a form, or tell a responsible person that you presently need instructions in writing. You need not reveal every detail, promise a date for feeling better, or prescribe what another person must provide. Name the limitation, the immediate need, and the boundary of the request. The minimum form may be choosing one essential duty and permitting the rest to wait. The ordinary form includes the 4 categories, 2 threshold pauses, reflection on identity, and 1 request. The expansive form may involve a fuller redistribution of responsibilities with trusted help. Altered capacity is not moral failure. Grief may change what you can carry without erasing your dignity, your vocation, or your right to ask for help. And after necessity has been separated from appearance, another question arises. If any strength remains, can it turn outward in love without service becoming a way to disappear from your own pain? Love may turn us outward, but escape can wear the same coat as generosity. 2 actions may appear identical from across the room. Both may prepare food, answer a need, offer money, or sit beside someone who is suffering. Yet one may arise from freely offered care, while the other is driven by the fear of becoming still enough to encounter one's own sorrow. The difference is not always visible, and it is rarely pure. Service becomes faithful not merely because it looks loving, but because it remains an offering rather than a hiding place or a test of worth. On day 23, examine one act of service you are considering. Ask, do I freely wish to offer this, or am I afraid of what I may feel if I stop? Am I responding to another person's need, to guilt, or to the need to appear strong? Would I still choose this act if no one praised it and it proved nothing about my recovery? These questions are invitations to honesty, not accusations. Motives are often mixed. Genuine affection may stand beside anxiety. Compassion may be entangled with the wish to feel useful. You need not achieve perfect inward clarity. You are discerning whether the proposed act can be given without abandoning yourself. On day 24, choose one small and bounded expression of care that fits your present capacity. Send a brief message, provide a simple meal, pray for someone, complete one errand, make a modest donation, or offer an attentive conversation with a clear ending. Decide beforehand what you are giving and where the act stops. Smallness does not make love insincere. A limited gift may be more truthful than a larger promise sustained by guilt. And if your honest discernment reveals that no outward task belongs to this day, refrain. Sometimes declining to serve is not selfishness, but respect for a life already carrying enough. On day 25, review the cost. Did the act leave you gently tired, deeply depleted, resentful, unsettled, or still able to attend to your own needs? Did it crowd out nourishment, prayer, necessary duty, or rest? If the person you served offers care in return, consider receiving it. Reciprocity does not cancel the gift. Allowing someone to bring food, listen, pray, or help with a task may protect service from becoming a one-way performance of strength. Then schedule rest as part of the practice. Exhaustion is not proof that devotion was genuine. The minimum form of service may be holding one person in prayer or choosing not to add another demand. The ordinary form includes examining motive, offering one bounded act, reviewing its cost, and receiving care. The expansive form may involve a larger contribution when strength, freedom, and support are truly present. None of these measures holiness, love for the one you mourn, emotional progress, or your worthiness to receive help. Service does not guarantee healing, and usefulness cannot certify the condition of a soul. These 3 days ask whether love can move outward without requiring self-erasure. What survives that honest test may belong in the life ahead. Now the practices themselves must be gathered not as 30 days to preserve unchanged, but as materials from which to shape a continuing rule that can bend when capacity changes. The strongest branch is not always the one that never bends, but the one that can bend without surrendering its roots. In the same way, a faithful rule does not prove itself by remaining unchanged. It remains rooted in truth, care, prayer, relationship, and responsible love while adjusting to the weather of an actual life. Grief is individual and embodied. Therefore, the pattern that accompanies it must be capable of becoming smaller, slower, or different without becoming meaningless. On day 26, select 3 anchors from the practices you have explored. Choose one anchor for truth, perhaps a brief lament or an honest sentence. Choose one for care, perhaps nourishment, gentle movement, or reduced demand. Choose one for connection, perhaps prayer, contact with a trusted person, remembrance, or a bounded act of service. Do not preserve everything merely because everything once appeared in the program. Keep what genuinely helps you remain present to God, yourself, and others. A lasting rhythm is not the fullest schedule you can endure. It is the smallest faithful pattern that can remain honest when your capacity changes. On day 27, prepare for the moments that do not ask permission before arriving. Write 4 words: notice, reduce, contact, choose. When an anniversary, location, object, administrative duty, or unexpected wave of grief unsettles you, first notice what is happening without turning it into a verdict. Then reduce the day to what is essential. Contact one named person who can offer presence or practical help. Finally, choose the minimum form of one anchor. The plan does not prevent sorrow. It keeps surprise from requiring you to invent every response while already overwhelmed. On day 28, protect one interval of rest or lowered demand. Then examine your distractions gently. Some ordinary comforts offer needed relief. Others soothe briefly but leave you less able to face the day, attend to your body, pray, or receive companionship. The question is not whether you escaped attention for a while, but whether the distraction returned you to life with slightly more room or carried you farther from what required care. Do not demand total withdrawal from comfort. Simply learn which forms of relief restore capacity and which quietly consume it. On day 29, write your personal rule. Use flexible frequencies, most mornings, once or twice each week, or when strength permits. Name the people you may contact. State the conditions under which you will pause, reduce, reorder, or omit a practice. Add one clear sentence. Nothing missed becomes a debt, and I may resume from where I am. This is not careless inconsistency. It is disciplined mercy, protecting the rule from becoming another performance. Review this rhythm monthly and ask, does it still serve love, honesty, prayer, and ordinary responsibility, or has it begun to serve fear and performance? Revise it when the answer requires revision. The rule belongs beneath mercy because your life is living, not mechanical. Now, only one question remains. If grief is still fully present, what can day 30 honestly mean? It cannot pronounce a verdict or certify completion. It must teach us how to continue without pretending that continuation is graduation. Day 30 is a doorway, not a diploma. You have not arrived here to receive proof that grief has ended, faith has prevailed, or life has returned to what it was. You have arrived at a threshold from which the next day can be entered with greater honesty and mercy. The calendar may conclude, but love does not obey a calendar, and sorrow does not become disobedient merely because it remains. Review these days, then, without grading them. Notice which practices made truth easier to tell. Notice which forms of rest helped you remain within your body, which memories allowed love to be honored without overwhelming the entire day, and which prayers kept you present to God when language was scarce. Remember the people whose companionship asked little of you, and the acts of service that expressed care without consuming what strength remained. Also name what was too costly, what felt inaccessible, and what may belong to another season rather than this one. A practice can be good without being good for you today. Setting it aside is discernment, not defeat. Perhaps pain remains sharp. Perhaps numbness has become more troubling than tears. You may still feel anger, fatigue, uncertainty, loneliness, or no clear change at all. None of these proves that the rule failed. None proves that faith was absent. These 30 days were never a bargain in which faithful effort purchased emotional relief. They were a way of giving form to the next hour while leaving the outcome beyond your control. This is where patient hope begins. Patient hope is not confidence that relief will arrive on the date you prefer, in the form you imagine, or with the emotional signs you have been watching for. It is the quieter trust that an unknown future may be entrusted to God without first being made predictable. Christian hope does not require you to call the wound closed. It permits you to take one faithful step while admitting that you cannot yet see where the path leads. The future remains in God's keeping, even when your feelings offer no forecast. The routine did not cure grief. It helped keep grief from deciding every hour alone. Some hours were placed beside lament, some beside embodied rest, some beside memory, prayer, community, and service. Together, these practices did not erase sorrow. They gave sorrow company, boundaries, language, care, and a direction in which love could move. That is enough for this rule to have served its purpose, even if the grief itself remains unfinished. Before today ends, prepare only for tomorrow. Choose one anchor you will practice, one truthful sentence, simple nourishment, a brief prayer, a bounded remembrance, or another small act that fits your capacity. Choose one person you may contact if the day becomes difficult. Then choose one permission that protects you from performance. Permission to shorten the practice, to change it, to receive help, or to omit it, and begin again later. One anchor, one person, one permission. You do not need a verdict about the future in order to inhabit the next day faithfully. The support offered here may remain available for another season. Like a trellis beside a living thing, it can provide shape and steadiness, but it cannot command the day of flowering. Growth belongs to God. Your task is not to force it, but to remain available to truth, care, companionship, and grace. If someone you know needs companionship rather than a deadline, share this video with them. Subscribe for further Christian reflections, and in the comments write this declaration: I will not rush what love must mourn. I will bring this day to God.